and what they're stacking on top of bosses, even when they don't have any awakened mobs.
Yeah, with Machimba, there's this strategy that involves like CCing the mummies that come out of the tombs as well. But I don't think we're actually going to see that because Explosive is active this time. So that may actually make this boss safer. It may make it less likely that we'll see a wipe on this boss in particular this time compared to other affixes we've seen in the past.
It's true, and while the leg bone is indeed connected to the foot bone, we also have Golden Guardians and Complexity Limit connected to each other, squaring off right now in King's Rest. There's a little bit of a stretch, I know. Go, take it away,
And
guys.
our producer in our ears telling us that Jack is no longer allowed to talk anymore because of that bad joke, so we are taking it away. So you see both teams here, they are either invis potioning or camouflaging, running their way through this area to be able to make it into that Golden Serpent room, to be able to prep for pulls. We saw two different strategies of how teams were grouping up the mobs just in this room. It looks like Golden Guardians are doing something similar to what we saw from Wunderbar yesterday, where they're positioning themselves near that corner to be able to line a bunch of explosives and line the Deathly Chill cast to get the mobs grouped up, where Complexity Limit taking a very standard approach, using those little fire goblets to be able to get all the mobs in and line the explosives.
Yeah, Complexity Limit here has that mage once again fired up on the Minute Mage. Let's see how, oh my goodness, look at him spiking up here in this AoE damage right at the start of this pull. They're going to use Ring of Peace to line of sight around here as all these mobs are extremely on fire. And this is actually looking pretty good for Complexity Limit.
Max gets his leap canceled by a tornado there. That's kind of scary. But again, look at where Complexity Limit's positioning. They're positioning themselves around those fire goblins because they create artificial line of sight to where you don't end up having to hit the Deathly Chill cast, you don't have to kick all the Shadow Bolt volleys, and you're able to line explosives.
I think Fired Up may have attracted the ire of one of those enemies there with all that damage he was doing. He is now perished. Golden Guardians, on the other hand, have finished this pull and are going to be engaging the boss, so they are certainly faster here than Complexity Limit. They'll be pulling this boss with two of these constructs, two of these Guardians, into this first boss.
Yeah, it looks like an explosive went off on the side of Golden Guardians. Only a couple members ended up getting hit by that. I think it was just Lighty, from what it looked like. So everything's going just well for Golden Guardians. They are, what would you say, like 15 seconds ahead? Oh, but Complexity Limit saved their Bloodlust from the first pull, where Golden Guardians ended up using it there.
Yes, that's true. And I think that Fired Up has, he's got another combustion ready right now. So he's going to be dumping that on into the Golden Serpent, and they're rapidly catching up here in boss health percentage. Despite pulling the boss much later, out comes the Ice Block to immune one of those Spit Gold applications. Fired Up here, unfortunately, not going to be with that Cauterize ability for quite a while now as a result of using it on the very first pull. So he will have to play a little bit safer in the rest of this dungeon until that comes back. But yeah, Complexity Limit here have caught back up almost. There is that 5-second death differential, but big damage coming out. Fired Up actually back on the Ajar's Font of Power for this dungeon as well. When we saw him playing yesterday, he was not using that trinket, but here he's got it equipped so he'll have even bigger combustions, but only once every 2 minutes.
Exactly. He was playing Vita in the Motherload that we saw, right?
It was something, something different.
I think it was Vita and Badge.
Something. It might have been Vita, yeah.
All right, so here comes the next combustion. You actually see that World Vein Resonance being used on his buff frame, dropping a bunch of damage. So you saw Complexity Limit catch back up in boss damage, but then once Fired Up
goodness, Fired Up has Things from Beyond just assaulting him while he's got this Spit Gold debuff. And he is playing, once again, I think 76 Corruption here. So he is in tremendous danger if a Thing from Beyond is to connect with him. But look at all the extra damage it's allowing him to do. Look at these damage numbers. This is very, very impressive for the mage.
So interestingly enough, both of these bosses are going to be killed about the same time. Complexity Limit doing a really good job of saving their Bloodlust for the Golden Serpent, being able to catch up in that regard. Golden Guardians starting to starting their gauntlet just a few seconds ahead, but realistically this is not going to be too much of a difference in terms of time.
Yeah, it's a 25-second differential on the boss plus the 5 from the death. So 30 seconds in the lead are the Golden Guardians as they enter this room. Yeah, with Raging and Explosive active, this room even can be fairly scary.
J.B, you actually do see off to the side. You may wonder where he is relative to the raid frames. He is off grabbing the 2 other constructs that the Golden Guardians need. Blighty doing a good job being able to sustain himself even without healing. Corruption and Versatile does a lot of great things for Protection Warrior to where they don't even need healing. from the healer sometimes.
Yeah, you can see the same strategy being used by Complexity Limit there with Twisted going and grabbing those enemies.
Ooh, okay, so Twisted, you saw him like walking with those mobs, casting, spinning. Oh, JB goes down for Golden Guardians.
Uh-oh.
He got caught by the frontal. This is...
They do have a res coming out on him.
okay.
Lady is going to be all right as well. This should cost them not more than just that battle res.
Exactly. Blighty is probably able to self-sustain through this pack even without JB. Same with the rest of the members of the Golden Guardians, but yeah, like Dredna said, I don't think that should cost more than just the res, but that is a scary moment in time because they now no longer have that battle res available. So both sides are missing that battle res.
Yeah, that shouldn't be... I mean, it shouldn't be the end of the world, right? It's just they don't have that buffer now. They don't have that cushion against a future mistake. That's the interesting way that the battle res mechanic kind of works in this format is it doesn't matter that you lost that battle res until something else happens bad, and then it really matters.
So Complexity Limit does a really good job of killing off that 3-pack of Kings right there before finishing off the double constructs to try to get the next Gauntlet pack spawning as quickly as possible, starting that RP. Golden Guardians are on that King and Queen duo, about 20% health left on that Queen, where Complexity Limit are now starting to get the 70-60% mark on that pack.
Fired up here, battling with Twisted for that 4th place slot on the damage meters. Does eventually win. But that is the tragedy of the mage outside of combustion. He's going to have it up, though, for the next pull.
JB's Thing from Beyond spawning a Thing from Beyond.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic.
As is per tradition, yes.
Both tanks here actually are playing that Marathas Fang trinket as well, which is going to allow him to pump out large amounts of damage. And that is in combination with the strength of the Warden Major for a big damage increase on its dot as well.
It has surprised me that healers are now electing to play the 55-59 corruption level. Not even on MDI realms, but on live realms as of late as well.
Yeah, it's because that corruption is all versatile, and so if you have all this versatility, you're just not actually taking that much damage from a Thing from Beyond or an Eye Corruption. So you're kind of safe to add a little bit more corruption and make those do more damage to you because the corruption you're adding is defensive anyways.
Yep, so now you do see both sides here. They are skipping that Samrek Beckoner of Chaos obelisk. Historically, whenever we see teams play 3 obelisks in King's Rest, typically that Samrek one is the one that they'll end up killing, but both teams looking like they're electing to skip it. Complexity Limit does something interesting. They pull the Purification Construct off to the side. They're going to meld / feign death it off or whatever, and then Golden Guardians actually play the Purification Construct, so getting a little bit of count for that.
Yeah, so now we see that has allowed Complexity Limit to catch up in terms of dungeon progression, but they are missing that 4% count. So that may allow Golden Guardians to do the rest of the dungeon 1 pull faster, and if that's the case, then they are well ahead.
So 4% count in this dungeon is... so this dungeon's like, what is it, 116 count? So the 4% is actually a substantial amount in terms of like how many pulls you're going to be gaining over a different team.
Yes, carry the 2.
For live realms, though, obviously there's a caveat that says for live realms only. For MDI, they will pull 4 pulls of live realm pulls in one.
All right, both teams now into Machimba the Embalmer. Golden Guardian's actually still a little bit ahead here in terms of boss health compared to Complexity Limit, despite having pulled a little bit more trash. So definitely widening that gap a little bit between the two teams. As they're now into the second boss, the one for which we saw those statistics, 20% chance of wiping from any given team on this boss.
So Golden Guardians, they got Shakib out of that Entomb as quickly as possible, to the point where I suspect that Machimba will no longer cast any abilities. There's an interesting interaction with Machimba, where if you are able to break your allied player out of those sarcophaguses in a speedy time, he will no longer cast any abilities, and he will just swamp your tank. Looks like Complexity Limit on the same side. They do have a Mummy out. A different strategy is you can set up pre-traps because of the 100% uptime on trap. And so you can just click the sarcophagus instant. And if your player is in the Entomb, great. You've gotten the boss to where he will no longer do any abilities and he's just a tank and spank. If not, he's trapped and you just have to make sure that you reapply trap every minute.
Yeah, you can see that trap getting tossed out right now actually on the side of Complexity Limit.
There's a pair on the far side of the boss, on the far side as well, so that's going to need to be reapplied. It looks like Atrocity is positioning to be able to trap it. There's a freezing trap that's going to be placed over that paralysis. both sides are looking pretty good. Golden Guardians is actually starting to pull out a little bit ahead in terms of boss damage.
I think this is the Hunters. I think this is the extra Hunter compared to the Mage. If you look here, Fired Up, 3rd place on the damage meters on that Mage, whereas the Golden Guardians all doing very, very large amounts of damage with all 3 of their Hunters. So I would attribute this boss dying a little bit faster for Golden Guardians to that class difference, actually.
Fired Up has just popped his combustion, so Machimba is going to start dropping a little bit quicker relative to where he was right before the combustion, but even then, Golden Guardians pulled out.
Just look at those damage numbers. Like, not even just the relative amounts of the classes, but the fact that all 3 of their Hunters are just out DPSing anybody on the side of Complexity Limit.
Well, it's also because you're pulling those internment constructs into Machimba, so you have rapid reload for your Aspect of the Wild recharge set on 3 Hunters as opposed to 2 Hunters from Complexity Limit. Whereas if Fired Up is combusting Machimba on pull, while that is nice, it's not.
And it actually ends the rapid reload
damage
phase faster.
Exactly.
Because it murders those 2 things that are next to the boss. All right, Golden Guardians now with a massive pull here on the start of the bridge. All of those raging mobs inside that healing totem as well. So the healing totem is taken care of. We see Turtle coming out. Oh, but Lady goes down. They do have a battle res back, but they don't have a good way to cast it. They're going to need somebody to go into harm's way and actually
the mobs are low.
On him.
Okay, so this is okay. Everything is so low that they should be able to just kind of kite it out with pet taunts and everything. All right, that was incredibly scary. The Golden Guardians are able to salvage it. Complexity Limit doing a very similar pull. This is their way that they can start to try to claw back just a little bit.
And look what happened to that totem there. Totems actually can catch fire with Ignite when you have a mage in your group. So Complexity Limit had absolutely no problem with that totem. It died within a second of showing up as it immediately got applied that Ignite debuff. But yeah, Golden Guardians now doing the skip. Complexity Limit, though, looking a little bit better on this pull than Golden Guardians did on their version of it. I think made up a little bit of time here. They'll be doing, it looks like, the same strategy with using the Obelisk as a partial group skip. So most of the team is going into the Obelisk, and 1 Hunter is going in stealth to just stay in the real world and then tag the boss to pull everybody else out of Ny'alotha.
Yeah, this is super smart. Right here, you do see Eric running down the platform, going to do something similar to what we saw from Golden Guardians. He's about to just tag the boss once everybody is inside the arena so they don't get locked out with those gates. Golden Guardians here, on the other hand, are 30% ahead on Cool of the Butcher. So
yeah, that gap is noticeable, and they still have that 4% trash advantage as well in their favor.
Do you think it's just optimization of how quickly they're moving around the room? Because that's like the only thing that I really notice is just how in sync Golden Guardians is relative to Complexity Limit with Lightfoot potions, just with like their decision making in terms of they don't even need to talk about anything, they just pull.
I think they're doing a good job of also like pulling the trigger on getting into Machimba as fast as possible instead of, waiting a little bit. I think Golden Guardians, much like Wunderbar actually, very good at kind of grouping everything up quickly and not spending a lot of time waiting to do something. There's very, very little waiting in the Golden Guardians strategy.
I was talking to Yoda a little bit about it, and he was like, yeah, there's very minimal talking whenever we're actually running the keys. And then he referred to it as manual override. He goes, if something goes wrong, then we'll enter manual override where we have to communicate things, like calling kicks or whatever. But generally, there's very infrequent communication in their comms because everything is so scripted.
Right, you've practiced this strategy hundreds of times. Maybe not hundreds of times, but somewhere close to that probably. And so you know who's doing
over
what.
6 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, you have a huge amount of experience here, and you just know who's kicking which enemy in which pull. You don't actually need to call anything out unless something weird happens. And in fact, if you do, it's likely to distract people from what they know they have to do. And so yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Look at Golden Guardians. So they immediately pulled Xanazal on top of that Earthwall totem. Just let the explosive totem go off because they know that it won't one-shot them 100-0. And so they focus down Xanazal, and it allows them to completely skip an extra totem phase.
Yeah, they're doing a great job there of just murdering Xanazal onto Akali now. That 30% boss health difference between the two teams has roughly stayed the same from pull, so Complexity Limit not losing time here, I'd say. But if they do get another totem phase from Xanazal, that will be an entirely different story. They need to burn down Xanazal here before it summons another set of totems. That's a good job by the Complexity Limit as well, yeah. So they are keeping up here with the pace that they have set.
Again, there's still 4% behind. That can be attributed to that purification construct, which do you think that that's going to make one pull's worth of difference at this point?
Yeah, I mean, one argument in favor of Complexity Limit is because they have this mage, they may be able to safely execute a bigger pull and just have it die very quickly to a combustion. So we'll have to see if that ends up being possible. Ooh, Lighty taking a big hit there with that Shattered Defenses debuff on him. Does manage to survive it, but that looked brutal.
So something that I do know that we saw from teams yesterday is that they were playing, by and large, they were playing Shadow of Zul by himself. If you have a mage on your team, however, do you believe that teams will be looking to play the 3-pack into that Shadow of Zul?
It's possible. Again, you get the huge benefit of the mage just incidentally killing anything that is dragged next to a combustion target.
Yes.
But it is still extremely sketchy, and you're not going to kill Zul quick enough for a protection warrior to not be in jeopardy here in the plus 21 key. Especially given that the protection warriors have to be playing, like they're playing all this offensive stuff for the rest of the dungeon. You know, the Mrechta's Fang, the Strength of the Warden, instead of defensive options like a Nazoth Trinket or a Memory of Lucid Dreams Major.
So, interestingly enough, Lighty, invisibility potions all the way through. JB is...
JB
died during the skip.
That cannot be part of the plan, because they don't have a good way to res
so
it. They have a battle res, so that will be the plan.
He was just a few moments late on pressing his Shadow Meld. Honestly, him trying to get through a Shadow Meld there, totally fine. Maybe an invisibility potion would have been a little bit more consistent, but burning a B-res there, not the end of the world as long as they do not need it later.
They are pulling trash here into Shadow of Zul. It's just going to be 2 enemies, though. They have
85. Oh, they have 4 obelisks, so that's where the rest of the count.
This is the construct that we were talking about. That allows them to trap this enemy here, the caster, or not the caster, but the archer, on the side of the bridge there. And they're going to be able to meld off combat with it later and not have to fight it. It's all coming together.
Would you be willing to make?
Well, so on the side of Complexity Limit, instead they did this big 5-pack, and that's going to get them all the count they need. So Complexity Limit now, moving on to Shadow Zul. Both teams are going to be done with their count, except for the last boss there. There is that Beastmaster coming in, though. Oh my goodness, huge damage coming out on everybody on the side of on the side of Golden Guardians. They're barely able to survive this. Shadow Zul does go down, and just need to mop up the rest of this trash.
Finishing up Shadow of Zul solo, where the Golden Guardians retrap the Beastmaster. They kill off the Raptor. So fortunate enough for them, the gate drops once you do end combat with Shadow of Zul. JB is able to walk in the room and start the RP on King Dazar to where he is just ready to be pulled for the rest of the group once everybody gets in here. Lighty has thrown his axe at King Dazar, and Golden Guardians have engaged the final boss. This is looking pretty good for them.
Yeah, Golden Guardians definitely can win here if they can just execute this part without anything going wrong. Oh, on the side of Complexity Limit, disaster has struck as a Dark Revelation puddle has occurred just next to Shadow Zul.
Max
is going to go down as a result of that. That is extremely unfortunate. Did not have a good way of dealing with that one. They needed somebody to go in and use an immunity, I think, inside that circle. It is really rough when it spawns that close to Shadow Zul.
Are Complexity Limit 2 count over, or does Golden Guardians have to kill that trapped Beastmaster?
That's an interesting question, Tettles, and one which I will be much more equipped to answer after all these mobs die, and we'll see what count they're at.
I see.
I think we have to remember as well that the Shadow of Zul count is not factored into the tracker.
There's the Beastmaster right there. Look, he's running in.
Yeah, the Beastmaster is staying trapped, so maybe they're going to deal with the Beastmaster once Dazar is like sub 60 or sub 40 or whatever. In that very last phase of the fight. That would be a pretty free time to do it in. And there's the time warp for Complexity Limit. They actually have that real Bloodlust as well. I guess so does Golden Guardians through the pets.
Yeah, because they're running Core Hound. Core Hound is actually a ferocity
pet, yeah.
Gives access to Bloodlust.
Alright, so Complexity Limit, definitely, I don't think they have... Wow, actually, just look at what Fired Up is doing to this, though. Look at what Fired Up is doing to these mobs.
This is what the Mage is really good at. So the Mage is exceptional at killing awakened mobs on top of final bosses, and just it's because of the raw power of how Ignite ends up working. Dude, look, everything's just dead.
Yeah, and all this extra corruption that they get compared to last time we were in the MDI all goes into the Mastery stat, and Mastery is that AoE. All of that AoE is scaled by Mastery.
They also have extra gems and stuff too. There's so much bonus damage that's coming out of the Fire Mage here, but even still, Golden Guardians are a solid 20% ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the gap is closed here, though. Complexity Limit has got a faster last boss than Golden Guardians does, I believe.
Golden Guardians
has
already dismounted.
The rest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Golden Guardians already dismounted Tazala off of King Dazar, and now they're just sitting here cleaving down the Beastmaster with King Dazar. So that's where the Beastmaster comes back in handy.
Yeah,
so the difference between the Purification Construct and not is the 5-pack versus the 3-pack into Shadow Soul.
And I think I like Golden Guardian's side of things here. The fact that they were able to then combine a pull with Shadow Soul, right? That's effectively -1 pull through the dungeon. Really speeds everything up. But this is an impressive showing for Complexity Limit as well. This is a very fast time that is going to come out for them as well in this dungeon. They're within a minute, I think, of the Golden Guardian's time, which is a great place to be.
This is not a run to be displeased with on either side, honestly.
That mage certainly looking impressive on the side of Complexity Limit. Not going to be enough, though. Golden Guardians are going to take game 1 here. 96%. They, of course, have that 4 extra percent that's not showing up on our tracker from Shadow Zool. So that's all they need. The dungeon is now over. Golden Guardians win game 1.
There it is. Golden Guardians taking the win. And it wasn't as spectacular in terms of like a couple of the deaths that we were seeing here and there, but they do take that win quite handily over Complexity Limit. But like you mentioned, Complexity Limit stayed in that hunt. They stayed in the race there, Zyro, and that's always going to be a position that we want to be able to see. That couple of little mistakes on one opponent's side, a couple improvements on another opponent's, or on their side, and they could really turn that into a win.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a solid building block for Complexity Limit here, but we have to talk about Golden Guardians. They had an overall relatively solid run, like only a couple very small hiccups over the dungeon. I think the worst part was probably the healer death in the gauntlet, just to a frontal slam. That's the kind of thing that you really can't see happen, but you know what? Didn't end up meaning anything in the long run here. They did take down this first King's Rest, and now we're moving on to both Motherload and Ataldazar, which we've seen Complexity Limit run. But so Golden Guardians kind of knows what they have to do to win on these maps.
I loved Golden Guardians' decisiveness with how they were moving through the dungeon. They were just all on the same page every single time. Whenever a Lightfoot potion needed to be popped, they were all in sync with popping it. Everybody was to the party whenever they needed to be, waiting for Lighty to get mobs grouped up, or just being in position, getting sick misdirections in the first boss room, getting all the mobs grouped up quickly. I thought that was an immaculate run by Golden Guardians.
I don't know. I mean, there were 3 uncharacteristic deaths, right? 2 from J.B and 1 from Lighty that, none of them ended up costing them much time, but any of them could have, I think. And that
it does leave open the door for some bigger mistakes. I do agree with that.
I think that's always what they're kind of looking for next. Is they've constantly been compared. Golden Guardians constantly been compared to Wunderbar in terms of the stature of their team and where they match up against them. So they're kind of forever saying, okay, well they had what was it 2050 or 21 minute KR that they had right there. Well, Wunderbar had just under 20 minutes for their run. So what needs to change? What needs to be developing for them? Because we're always kind of expecting Golden Guardians Wunderbar matchups to be coming pretty soon in this tournament as well, Zyro.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. We talked about this a lot last year when NA and EU were in the same region. Everyone's strategy kind of needs to be, how can you deal with Wunderbar? And it's kind of a scary thing to think about with how good they are. We talked about it last match, and yeah, this might be good enough to get them in a match against Wunderbar, but putting yourself in a situation where you needed the other team to wipe in order to win is not going to be very favorable for you.
That's right, and Mudload's going to be next up in our pool, and I'm very curious to see how this is going to start, matching up, because we were seeing some, what was around 15, 16-minute runs earlier on this weekend here, Drenos.
Yeah, this is a dungeon that there's been a lot of evolution and strategy in, and most teams we've seen doing this many Peacekeeper first pull into first boss, using sending everybody out on a stealth mission to go and activate some Peacekeepers, and then meeting up and shadow melding, and then all the Peacekeepers activating and coming at them anyways. We'll have to see, though, what Golden Guardians end up doing, because I don't think we've seen their move in this dungeon yet. And of the other teams that have played this, I think 3 out of 4 of them have messed up that first pull. So Golden Guardians either may be able to execute it better, or may just have a different strategy entirely that eliminates that risk.
I wonder if we do have some statistics on Motherload for Golden Guardians from the past, because from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Settles, but from what I remember, Golden Guardians has always been very, very strong with this dungeon and just constantly evolving their strategies.
Oh, absolutely. Their Motherload has always been something to watch. Even last season, whenever they were Method NA, whenever they were the first people that I ever saw to do. It was like 7 thugs in one pool, or something just super sick.
Did you just have their healer stealth and just sit out as the unholy phase? He was chilling in the back.
He was AFK in stealth. Yeah, the DKs are sitting there with Icebound Fortitude, and it's like, oh, either it dies or I die. Like, the Roadcasts were posted up, and they just prayed that they don't die. And honestly, their Motherload innovations have always been super good. So I would suspect that, again, it's hard to innovate whenever you don't see what other teams are doing a lot of the times. But this Wunderbar team and this Golden Guardians team have always been at the forefront of innovation, I feel like.
Yeah, and big part of that innovation as well, Zyro is going to be kiting Obelisk with the last boss. And Razdunk, on average, almost killing one person a fifth of the time. These teams are having wipes to it. It's going to be a tall task.
Oh yeah, and that's a dangerous boss to deal with when you don't have a healer up there with you. We're probably going to see the similar logic loops coming out from, or rather, the rebooting bitband, I believe is what it is, coming out from the DPS players, healing every member in their group every 15 seconds just to keep themselves alive. And of course, they have a lot of defensive abilities to deal with the crash downs in the intermission phase, but a lot can go wrong, as we saw yesterday. Perplexed even, unfortunately, snapping mobs on top of them on the final boss there because of healer aggro, because the players require so much healing to stay alive. It's just a ridiculously difficult fight in general, and then taking the healer out of the mix can cause all sorts of problems.
What do you guys think about the mage in ML? Because we saw Complexity Limit play the mage in ML yesterday, and theoretically, with the overclock buff and the Peacekeepers, like the combustion being able to go through the Peacekeeper shield pretty easily, it seems like it should be really strong, yet Complexity Limit's ML seemed a little bit slower than it needed to be yesterday, so I'm not sure.
Ignite doesn't go through the shield, though.
You're able to,
the shield.
You're able to stack up Ignite through the shield, though, right?
Sure. Yeah. You can stack up the Ignite, but if you're standing in front of the shield, it'll be absorbed still. So you need to position yourself in a way to where you're behind as many of the shields as possible. It's definitely a big player cap thing, but if it's pulled off properly, Mage does have the highest damage potential in the game.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we'll see if they're going to be bringing that Magician back with them as Motherload is ready to go between Golden Guardians and Complexity Limit.
And Golden Guardians here with an unfortunate corruption slow on Lighty as this very first thing. Starting off their dungeon, that's not what you like to see. And out comes some Shadow Mills there. I wonder where their Hunters are off to. It looks like the same strategy is actually coming out pretty much from both teams here.
You know
Actually,
what I think we need to bring
back.
We need to allow tanks to get dazed off their mounts again.
This is not going to be the same strategy at all. This is a big pull from Golden Guardians.
The 7 Thugs! Golden Guardians doing a massive pull. So 1, 2, 3. This looks like 7 Peacekeepers. Oh, 8 Peacekeepers? Man, this pull is wild for... So historically, we've seen a pull of this caliber, but it's only been done with 2 Death Knights and a Rogue. But Golden Guardians are attempting to do it with triple Hunter.
Yeah, look at that HPS being put out by J.B's Way of the Crane. They were just letting those Halo Flechettes go through and they're just spinning crane kicking through it. Meanwhile, on the side of Complexity Limit, we have the same pull that we saw them try to do yesterday. It didn't quite work out for them. They had to use a battle res on it, but this time things may go a little bit better as they are pulling the first boss and a boatload of Peacekeepers. Golden Guardians, though, huge amount of count there from this first pull. 43% on the board from that very first pull.
The advantage of doing the pull like that is you're also getting the count from those mech jockeys into your count total as well. So whenever you do the pull how Complexity Limit did, you're going to be melding, feign deathing, vanishing, shadow melding off those mech jockey combat, meaning that you're not going to be gaining the forward count per Peacekeeper that you end up killing from the mech jockeys that are piloting it. Whereas whenever you do it like Golden Guardians, you do get that count. So they may have a 28, 32-ish count advantage over what a similar pull would be from Complexity Limit, just in terms of how much count is going into those Peacekeepers.
Yeah, Golden Guardians are pretty much done with count in the rest of the dungeon. They're going to need to get the VMZ count so that they can do their kiting strategy, if that is their strategy. But other than that, they're pretty much all set. Whereas Complexity Limit are going to still need to pull some more stuff after this boss in order to reach that 100% mark eventually.
Is Golden Guardians just going to run straight to Azeroth after they end up killing Coin Operated Crowd Pummer?
I think they can, yeah. And then they can maybe pull the trash pack just before Azeroth in to just round out their percent. On the side of Complexity Limit, though, this pull has looked really good as well. They are getting a lot of count also, and they're killing this boss at the same time and making use of that mage. This is a really great pull for the mage.
Golden Guardians is catching up. Okay, so also like a big deal with having this many Peacekeepers is that Coin Operated Crowd Pummeler is going to move in like a very strange way, and not... Oh, goodness. Okay, hold on. Pause for a second. Golden Guardians have pulled the Mine Rats and the Earth Ragers in. This is a significant amount of tank damage. Even on a 21 on Tyrannical, this can be scary for your tank because of those throw rocks, those rock lances, and those earth shocks.
Oh no, and some coins have been picked up. I think actually both sides have coin-operated crowd pummelers that are extremely, extremely loaded with coins right now. Luckily, Complexity Limit able to finish that off, but I think that the next energy pulse that we see coming out on the side of Golden Guardians is going to hurt. Yeah, actually, you can see that dot still ticking on everybody.
So, Golden Guardians is just has the VMZ left, plus I think they probably will pull that one trash pack like you were stating in the Azarok.
Right, whereas Complexity Limit, you can see right now, are actually doing a trash pull. And Golden Guardians, I don't know if they are going to do that. It looks like they might actually be doing this big trash pull here as well. So this is where they're going to be collecting some count as well. At some point, they're going to be out of options, though, because if they're planning to pull the whole VMZ, maybe
I guess maybe a false assumption is that they're going to be kiting the Awakened Obelisks.
Yeah, they could just be planning to kill the 4 Awakened enemies, or they could be planning... Oh, JB. No, J.B has perished. Okay, Lighty
has 2 of those Earth... Oh, goodness.
Look at his health just degenerate with those dots on him. Another one applied. Those are
Lighty,
physical
please.
dots as well.
If Lighty goes down, this is so bad. Oh, no. Okay, so this pack is incredibly hard to kite back, but those sappers are killing themselves off currently.
Yeah, the problem is everything else. You can see Lip now getting a snipe.
It's so hard to recover.
All of these enemies are just casting. There's another rock lance, just taking out one of their players. And that's what happens here when your tank dies. This is a very, very, very time-consuming and death-costly pull once the tank has perished the first time.
So I've been at this point in Life Keys, and I'm sure you have as well, where you want to try to salvage this pull, but then you end up turbo feeding, running it down on this pack. But something that Golden Guardians is doing that's interesting is that they pulled so many extractors. These drillers that come out of the extractors do not give count. So I suspect that Golden Guardians are about to drop a binding shot here. They're going to dismiss their pets. They're all going to use their drop combat abilities, and then they're going to no longer be in combat with these drillers.
Yeah, I think they might be they might save them until they reach the top here, and then they'll meld everything all at once. Yeah. You can see Lighty, he's going to get in combat, and then he's going to leap meld once they're all ready. There's the leap, there's the meld. And everything has been... Yeah, the bomb's unfortunately there. On top of Lighty. On the side of Complexity Limit, though, things have gotten badly twisted. Does die and takes the battle res. Wow, great battle res from Complexity Limit. Keeping Twisted up. Max able to survive until Twisted back available. And that is looking good for them. So they're a little bit ahead here on Azarok, but look at those trash count differentials between these teams. Golden Guardians are almost at 100%. Complexity Limit still shy of 50%.
That is a large amount of count, and if I were saying who I would guess to win this, I would absolutely take Golden Guardians at this point in the match. 30% trash differential is so...
It does definitely tell us that their strategy is not going to be to kite the obelisk, right? They have nowhere near enough count left in their route to pull that trash in the VMZ efficiently, so they're not going to be doing that, which means that they will be fighting 4 Awakened Obelisks, we think. Maybe they'll do the last obelisk, so maybe it will just be 3, but they'll be at least fighting some Awakened enemies with Mogul Razdunk. Complexity Limit, on the other hand, we know that their strategy involves that kite, which we saw Twisted successfully execute yesterday. Twisted actually one of the few healers that I think has yet to mess up a Awakened Obelisk kite, as far as I remember.
Something I just noticed is that we're currently 7 minutes into the dungeon, and Golden Guardians are almost done with 2 bosses and trash count.
Yeah, that is an impressive feat for sure. Motherload is just one of those dungeons where sometimes you can get these routes and where you feel so smart because you've got all your trash count like very early into the dungeon. That is a really, really good feeling, and I think Golden Guardians have exactly one of those plans here.
But typically, you're super smart, and then you're fighting Azarok at 24 minutes into the dungeon.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely an important difference.
There's an important distinction to be made. Okay, so Complexity Limit doing the smart strategy of running around the right side. It saves you approximately 5 seconds overriding the minecart, but it is dangerous because if you hit the bombs, then you just kind of die.
If anybody wants to see what can happen if you hit those bombs, I believe Tettles has hit almost all of them. Almost all, in fact, in the same day once before. It's a very catastrophic thing.
Anyhow, Golden Guardians here are making their way towards Rix's Flux Flame. Complexity Limit just finishing off their skip into Rix's room as well. We know that Eric is about to pull this War Machine, going to misdirection Max to be able to get that War Machine and that Technician in. That Technician does cast that overcharge buff, which grants 50% haste whenever spell's stolen, which allows Fired Up to just do wild amounts of damage towards these first two mobs. Golden Guardians on the other side doing a very similar thing.
They have two War Machines in here.
Mind.
They've done a good job though. Oh no, they have not. No, they've not. They've not done a good job at all of pulling. Look at what happened there to Lip's health. So War Machines, when they cast that charge shot, if the first one is already casting charge shot, the second one will target somebody who's not the tank, because only one person can have that debuff at a time. So look what's happening there.
It's the nearest player. I actually don't know how it works with Hunter Pets, but the fact that it was going on somebody that was, the fact that it was going on Lip there makes me assume that it will not pick Hunter Pets, but it can go on the nearest. Like you're saying,
if the tank has already being charged shot by another one. Luckily, they managed to heal through it, but that was extremely sketchy there. And I believe they tried to mitigate that based on when they pulled those War Machines, but a little bit of randomness associated with that spell queue ended up getting them anyways. They are okay though, 96% count now. The rest they need will just be from those 4 Awakened Obelisks. So they're going to be doing 4 Obelisks with the last boss for sure here. If that works out for them, they are well ahead and they are going to win this game and this match. If they wipe to that, I believe Complexity Limit is close enough that they can then steal and come back here with their kiting strategy if that works out.
It's absolutely going to take a pretty big blunder by Golden Guardians, but Golden Guardians' run has looked just insanely fast in terms of how well they executed that first pull of the dungeon, and the reason that they're so far ahead is off the back of that first pull giving them, was it 45% enemy forces count or something just absurd?
Yeah, it looked so easy as well, but if you try to do that pull yourself, you're gonna find yourself dead to those thug charges. You're just wondering, like, how on earth did the Golden Guardians pull this off?
I wouldn't even do that in a Mythic 0.
It's extremely lethal, but somehow they were able to live through it. I'm sure with a great amount of practice and understanding of exactly when they need to use their abilities to survive all that stuff.
Golden Guardians here are going to be running up the right-hand side. Maybe they're going to elect to let Lighty go into the obelisk. Okay, so no, they're actually all just going to run up. They're all either going to pop their Meld or their Feigned Death ability to be able to drop combat with all of these mobs, mines, whatever else they are pulling, just to be able to get all the way through, because they no longer need any enemy forces count. All the enemy forces count that they do require will be coming here momentarily out of the obelisks.
Yeah, they do have a couple of those mines that they activated, which are still going to be coming at them. They're finishing those off really quick, and then they will be pulling this last boss and fighting, not kiting, the obelisks. Meanwhile, Complexity Limit are setting up to kite by killing all of the trash that's in the VMZ, so they are catching up on that mob count, but their fate is not in their own hands anymore. It is in the hands of the Golden Guardians, who are pulling Mogul Razdunk now, and all 4 of those awakened enemies. If this works out for them, they are going to win, and they will be in to at least 3rd place, and we will see them again tomorrow. Loser of this match, however, going into the lower bracket.
Golden Guardians here, not running 4 hounds, electing to run turtles. Are turtles ferocity pets by chance? Do you know?
I have no idea.
All right, neither do I, but I see that the Golden Guardians members electing to run the turtle. All right, so Complexity Limit here. You do see on the right-hand side of your screen, they are pulling double War Machine. They have a bunch of...
Oh my goodness.
A bunch of Technicians, a lot of Sky Scorchers. This is very scary. Golden Guardians making the killing of the 4 obelisks. They're pretty seamless right now.
Lighty is taking large amounts of damage, though. That is going to be the Life Cocoon from J.B. Yeah, there it is. And they are almost done here with these awakened enemies. Just Urgroth and the Blood of the Corrupt are left. That Gatling gun does a lot of physical damage, though, if people get caught in it. We saw that happen, actually, the first time it was cast. This time they get a little bit more of a favorable direction with that boss spin direction. And they are now done with their awakened enemies.
They just minutes into this dungeon.
Yeah, they just have this boss fight. This is a ridiculous pace that they are on here. Complexity Limit's run hasn't been bad at all. Complexity Limit has looked pretty great, I'd say, in their run, but Golden Guardians are just on another level entirely. And they are out of the woods at this point. They just have this boss fight, although it's not an easy boss fight on Tyrannical necessarily. Can still be lethal if things go wrong for them, and there are a couple of cases where things can go really wrong if you're not careful with where you position those Sky Scorchers in the intermission.
Okay. So what Dratnus is referencing with that comment is the Sky Scorchers will occasionally do a disengage style leap where they will just leap away from you, and we've seen issues in the past where teams will just accidentally reset their boss. Complexity Limit is having some major problems right now. Eric is at 5% HP. Atrocity is dead. Twist is trying to kite these mobs, and he looks like he's going to end up resetting the pull. Bloodlust was popped for Complexity Limit as well. That is
not what you like to see. As Complexity Limit having their pull there go horrifically wrong. They still may have enough time to catch up here if Golden Guardians have something go wrong for them, but at this point, Golden Guardians are done with the hard part of the fight, right? They've done the 4 Awakened Obelisks. They just have the boss left. They're through the intermission. All they need to do is not have anything go... Wow, look at... What are they dismissing pets for in this phase? I guess they're summoning out different pets here for the final phase. Yeah, getting those Spirit Beasts out. A little minor optimization from the Golden Guardians for this very last phase. Nothing that those pets could be doing that was useful as the intermission ended. And yeah, they're gearing up to try again.
They had a Tenacity pet out. I guess the heal from the Spirit Beast.
Yeah, I mean, may as well, right? It's a
I guess you have extra time. There's no. Yeah. I guess there's no point in. You just pop the Spirit Bend on yourself and let JB do all of the damage he possibly can.
And I think that's all they need here. Yeah, there's not really any way that this could go wrong for the Golden Guardians at this point. Complexity Limit with a valiant effort, but that is going to be Game 2 and a match going to Golden Guardians. They will be tomorrow playing up against Wunderbar. They are going to win this game.
This ML, that was very swift, I will say. It's going to be right at 15 minutes.
Yeah, that is some ridiculous precision there by the Golden Guardians, taking the victory in Motherload. And like you mentioned, Dranos, they're going to be having a nice short day today, and they'll be squaring off against Wunderbar for tomorrow. So on this side's ironic, Golden Guardians has shown that they are that team that continues to want to go up against their